center stage. So across Africa, we're seeing scam operations have industrialized. What used to be the occasional price scam SMS has morphed into a full spectrum of attacks. And this includes smishing, vishing, deepfake voice calls that sound like your relative or your bank manager, and even AI generated identity and KYC documents, sophisticated social media schemes that ride directly on the top of telecom and mobile money infrastructure. In this environment, operators can no longer see themselves as neutral pipes, especially when customers are at risk and being compromised because of things such as SIM swap, and also, authorizing fraudulent transactions that they rarely blame the fraudster alone. They blame the operator whose networks brand they trusted. The result is not just financial loss, but erosion of trust, NPS decline, complaints, and regulatory pressure. So in this session, there are three things that we are hoping to touch upon. One is the scam typology, sorry. What does the African scam landscape actually look like in 2026? Which attack types are scaling fastest? And of course, are they operators and partners that are truly equipped to detect and disrupt them in something close to real time? I think in the previous sessions, we've seen that this is indeed actually possible. So that's quite reassuring. The next thing is the human factors, or the human in the loop, where we're seeing social engineering really remaining the primary attack vector, exploiting agents, trust gaps, and social platforms. Where does operator responsibility start and stop? And also, when is the weakest link is human, customers, agents, and even staff? And then lastly, cross-border and organized fraud, where we're looking at scam centers and cross-border fraud rings, increasingly targeting mobile money infrastructure across jurisdictions. And of course, how are operators and regulators coordinating across borders, and where are the biggest gaps in intelligence sharing and joint action? Also, fraud awareness and also protection versus friction are some of the other considerations going forward. So I'd like to start off with introducing our old lady panel this afternoon. And that, I think, is a breath of fresh air for all of us. And starting off with Anne Khambo, a revenue and insurance fraud management manager. Please give her a hand as she joins us on the stage. Anne is an assurance, fraud management, and compliance specialist with specializations that include certified anti-money laundering specialist, CAMS, and certified public accountant. She leads revenue assurance and fraud management, where her mandate is to design and operate controls that protect mobile money, revenue, and customer funds, from system reconciliations and gap analysis to near real-time alerts and fraud monitoring rules that materially reduced fraud incidents where she works. We also have Ogo, the country manager at Nigeria at Truecaller. Please join us on the stage. Incidentally, while I was in this room, I actually did a reverse lookup using Truecaller to see if somebody was trying to scam me. And believe it or not, it was actually potentially a scam. And thank you very much. We appreciate your services. And she leads Truecaller's operations in Nigeria. She's focused on expanding market share, user acquisition, and also business growth. She's got deep experience in scaling payment and SaaS products across African markets. At Truecaller, she sits right where phone identity, spam, and scam detection and user trust intersect, watching scam calls and SMS patterns at scale, and working with partners to reduce unwarranted and also unwanted fraudulent communications. And lastly, we have Mieraf, who's the executive head of fraud management at Safaricom Telecommunications in Ethiopia. Please join us and give a hand, please. Mieraf is a certified telecom fraud analyst, information security professional with over a decade of experience in fraud management, fraud investigations, and also security awareness in the Ethiopian telecom industry. And now she's the executive head of fraud management, fraud detection, analytics, internal fraud control, and security training, giving her a unique vantage point on how customer-facing fraud evolves in rapidly scaling new markets. So to get us started, I'd like to ask the three of you a general question. And really the question is, what keeps you awake at night, right? When you look at your world today, whether that's in the telco you're working in, whether it's Truecaller's Nigerian user base, whether it's Safaricom's, Ethiopia's fraud landscape, what is the most worrying scam typology or customer-facing fraud pattern you're seeing in 2026? And what is the one specific action or control your organization has implemented to make a measurable difference in protecting customers? I think we'll start off with you, Mieraf.
Okay, thank you so much. Of course, just from my career and so far, the one that wakes me up, doesn't let me sleep, is the fraudster. Of course, for most of us, I think it's a common thing. So, considering the Ethiopian market, the digital landscape has been evolving. especially the government have a big aspiration in pushing digital Ethiopia 2030, which is a great aspiration, which are looking forward to see the digital ecosystem, the telco, as well as the fintech to grow along with that initiative. However, this also, while it's creating an opportunity for the citizens to be connected, it's also creating a big opportunity for the fraudsters to grow, to really rapidly evolve in terms of characteristics, how they commit the fraud, also in terms of the methodology they are implementing. So that's really the key thing we are looking day and night and try to monitor. And when I come to the landscape, how the typology of the Ethiopia landscape fraud looks like, basically we see just somehow frauds. However, the basics one, which I can refer, is the social engineering. It has been mentioned in this house since the morning. I think most of us, we agree. It has been throughout the global ecosystem. It has been a big fight for all of us. And also I can say the account takeover merged with the SIM swap because they're using it as a channel, and also the subscription fraud. As we all know, it has been the mother of all the frauds. Also, we are dealing with that aspect. And I should say the IRC fraud and the commission arbitrage fraud, when it comes to mobile money, is also there in place. So we can see that even the funny thing I find, the CFSA report, those frauds we've been talking, that has been mentioned in the top 10, right? If we got the chance to refer. So we can see that these fraudsters are like talking to each other. That's how I feel when I see everywhere we are talking the same thing. And it's really, I can see that they've been like reading each other so that they're impacting us in a more organized way. That's what I understand. And also when it comes to, of course, they are evolving, they are very, very sharp and they're smart. Like they looks like to be ahead of us when we see the trillions global loss like that has been presented this morning. So to combat this, of course, we have to really speed up our pace in terms of what? For example, in our scenario, especially deploying real-time detection, having it on place, strong data analytics, the machine learning and AI implementation. Of course, technologically, we got to be very, very, very cautious and we have to be strong in that aspect. Those are the key areas, understanding what kind of customer behavior really we are having in our ecosystem. So leveraging our data, leveraging technology has been the key aspect we use to combat these frauds. Also, we added only having technology in place doesn't really help you eliminate this problem. We have been understanding that from our journey in the fraud and the RA industry. So also having a good customer awareness, internal fraud awareness in place, which is very consistent, is also very important. And the last one we also been doing is a collaboration with a lot of stakeholders. In the morning, Esther have mentioned fraud is not a battle that we fight. It's a battle we collaborate. So in Ethiopian market, we have two telecom industries, the state-owned Ethio Telecom and as Safaricom Ethiopia. So of course we know we are competitors, but when it comes to fraud, we are really, really afraid. Stress me on that. We have every phone call wherever the frauds, new behaviors are observed. So I think these are the key areas we've been trying to face with this fraudsters.
Thank you so much, Mieraf. What about you, Anne? What can you tell us about what keeps you up at night?
I keep thinking about that one person who's very innocent is not aware that their identity has been stolen. And the person who's stolen that identity is committing a crime. That keeps me awake. Because then I look at how many people possibly sitting in this room do not even know that either their ID in terms of their real data and their real biodata or their photo has been used with someone else's biodata to register a SIM card and commit a fraud. That keeps me awake at night. How do we then look at this and how do we curtail such type of fraud that's happening? Be aware as a customer. In the country, specifically for Kenya, we have 106 hash where you can cross-check what are the identities that have been linked to your, or MSISDNs that are linked to your individual identity. That way, at least you have some good control from your perspective. However, there was a time we were having a conversation across the industry and someone mentioned that their photo had been used for 1,000 other different IDs with different names. imagine how scary that would be if a cop shows up at your door trying to catch you, yet you don't even have any idea who this person is. It brings up also how much data do we have out there in the public? How many of you know where your LinkedIn photo has been used? I don't know if you've ever done a reverse search on your LinkedIn profile just to see where your photo has been used. Might be a good cue. Maybe try today and see where you are. You'd be surprised you're a director somewhere, you have no idea. Yeah. So that keeps me awake at night when I keep trying and thinking, how do I safeguard this person? How do I make sure that I can leverage on AI, even within the company that I work with, to know how we can make these identifications and stop subsequent registrations? That keeps me awake at night.
What about the human factor? Because I think that's increasingly coming out as one of the primary drivers behind fraud, right? Whether it's intentional or unintentional. And I think sometimes the sad thing is that you're saying is that the situation where somebody doesn't know what they don't know. And the victims often do these things innocently. Like you said, they'll do a USSD session and someone's into their SIM. What are those mitigations that we need to start exploring probably in a more proactive way for them, especially those who don't know what they don't know?
I think that responsibility then would lie with the operator to a good extent, because as a customer, I do not know who has access to my image. I don't know who posted my image. From Fextons, maybe they think I look nice. And from tomorrow, maybe I'm...
You do look nice.
Thank you. So maybe from tomorrow, they'd think I am a gold miner somewhere. Maybe that photo looked very professional, that I could be a director at some gold mine company. But I hope that my operator would be able then to safeguard me from that aspect, because I don't know that I do not know that my photo has been used somewhere. I don't know that. So the operator has a responsibility of ensuring that these fraud patterns do not happen. What systems have you put in place within your ecosystem, all the way from onboarding to actual usage? And should it have missed being flagged at onboarding level, how then can I catch it during a transaction pattern? Am I also looking at it from a reassessment perspective, saying, yes, I know who my customer is within my ecosystem, but can I trace down this customer to get their true identity? Maybe what Simizi was saying in the morning could be a good thing if we could actually leverage on your bioprint instead of the old photo. Who looks like their national ID and you're above 30 years old here? I don't. So I don't even know if today I'm told to prove that I'm the same person with my national ID. It could be a different discussion if maybe I didn't have money, maybe I had money, I don't know. Yeah. So that is, we can peg it on the operator because they have that visibility. I, as an individual customer, I do not have it. So the operator should come in.
So Ogo, first of all, I just have to say I'm a big fan of Truecaller. And I think it's one of those tools that, literally when you get a strange call or something doesn't look right and you can just pop in the number and have a look. I think it's such a valuable service that you provide. So just saying I'm a fan. So when you're coming on the panel, I was just like, yay, I'm meeting with somebody from Truecaller. But coming back again to the question, what keeps you up at night, and how do you see yourself and the role that Truecaller plays in sort of helping those who might need what you have to offer?
Thank you, Moses. And yes, from a Truecaller perspective, what is keeping us awake at night, right? And I'd like to introduce a concept that nobody has talked about since we've been here all morning. This is a room of fraud experts. But for us as Truecaller, we are seeing a problem of spam. The problem of spam. And we can go on and talk about fraud. We have all the experts in the room. But I wanted to raise our consciousness to the problem of spamming. Remember, we sit at that intersection between the caller and the customers, right? And we recently released our global intelligence report. We release that report every 5 years. And I'm going to just summarize the 5 things that stand out in that report. The first thing is that a phone call used to mean that someone else is on the other line, right? That is no longer a safe assumption. When your phone rings, you should not make the assumption that it is a human being that is on the other side of that no longer exists in 2026. The second thing is that in 2025 alone, Truecaller, with a monthly active user base of 500 million users, we were able to intercept spam and fraud calls of about 68 billion in 1 year. Now compare that to 2021 when we ran the same, it was 37.8 billion, somewhere around there. Now just 4 years down the line, it has doubled. The third thing we need to realize is that we are living in the meshing era of spam and fraud. The meshing, the meshing has helped, the fraudster to scale. Fraud is now at an increasing and alarming scale. It's automated. The AI that we're using to prevent them is also helping them to scale and scale really fast. And I'm glad we have the MNOs in the room, because there is a growing category of spam that is called actually the carriers and the operators. It's a growing category. The customers feel that they are being spammed by the operators. So I'm glad that the operators are in the room, the MNOs are in the room, and we have to start thinking about how do we communicate to our users? How do we is it okay to call my users 10 times a day? Is it okay to send them SMSs 10 times a day? Is it really okay? You know, if my calls are not being picked, and that is the erosion of trust. We're talking about fraud, but we're not talking about the economic implication of eroding the trust between yourself as an MNO and the customer. So the phone is no longer something to be picked, it is now something to be ignored. And what does that mean in a business sense, in an economic sense, right? Legitimate businesses cannot reach their users, right? Because we cannot declutter, we cannot stand out from the noise. The second thing is that your cost of acquisition goes up. If you call the customer several times, it's not picking, you have to look for other channels to reach the customer. And then service operations, service levels start to decline, and revenue opportunities are being lost. So what are we doing at Truecaller? And to your question, from the consumer point of view, the fraud problem is still real. And what are we doing from a consumer point of view? We are, investing heavily in AI. We're investing heavily in intelligence. We've started to look at fraud from a family level because fraud does not affect one person. Fraud, if I lose money, I mean, that's money I could have used to pay school fees, to do something, like it impacts everything. So we've started launching family protection. How do you take care of yourself and everybody? That every family has that tech guru, the person that knows, and you can automatically hang up. If my mom is getting a fraud call, I can from my cell phone hang that up if my mom is getting a fraud call. The second thing we are doing is AI call scanner, because we found out that these frauds have scripts. They follow the same scripts. In Nigeria, they call you, they say, I'm calling you from your bank, and this. So there's a script that they tend to follow. So we have embedded AI call scanner into Truecaller so that if you are getting the call and we're getting all the signals that this is a potential scam, we start to highlight it that this is possibly a scam, and you can end the call. And then on the business side of things, which is verified call, we are helping businesses to sort of know to make their communication smarter, efficient, and safer. How do you communicate to your customers? It's okay for MTN to call me, but it's also okay for it's important that MTN tells me why they are calling me. So those are the things we're helping, organizations and businesses to help them streamline their communication processes and make it more efficient.
Well, Gogo, thank you so much for that. So really, again, it's not just about the fraud, it's about the spam.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of stuff happening there. And I think the numbers you just mentioned, the billions and billions more, it's great to see that you are providing those interventions to help. Mieraf, I'd like to come back to you. Obviously, Safaricom Ethiopia is a high growth operator in a relatively new competitive market with mobile money and digital services ramping up quickly. As this happens, what does the customer-facing fraud landscape look like in Ethiopia? I know you touched a bit on it earlier. And what typologies are most prominent? And how have you had to design your fraud management and analytics capabilities to keep pace as subscriber numbers and digital adoption grow?
That's a wonderful question, really, because every landscape every MNOs are facing their own kind of fraud, but one or another way, it's interrelated. When you see globally, I also try to touch it earlier about it, what we have been facing. So as was I saying also, Oga also referred about SMS fraud, the scamming. So this scam is also happening in Ethiopia landscape as a smishing. So that has been a great problem is that we've been dealing. Also, I can add there's an interesting account takeover approach we've been observing in the landscape. You know, we ladies, maybe you might help me, the ladies in this room. We use makeup, right, just to look beautiful. Have you thought of using makeup to scam or to do account takeover? That's what we've been observing. Then they do the makeup and they present themselves as somebody else to do SIM swap. That's what was really identified in the market, and it was really amazing. Nobody expected it in that aspect. So they're really, really like sophisticated in the way they try to trick the agents, even the employees we have, also the customers we have in the ecosystem. So these are the basic 3 points I see social engineering. I've been referring it earlier as well. Those has been the key aspects. However, as I mentioned earlier, I can put it in 3 aspects how we try to combat these frauds happening currently: the people perspective, the technology perspective, and also the process perspective. So when we see the technology perspective, as I have mentioned earlier, just utilizing the data we have in our environment is a big asset. And also deploying advanced technology on the top of it, the AI, the machine learning, data analytics has been like doing a magic job for most of telecom operators in solving the fraud and RA problems we have. Of course, the false positive and the true positive have to be watched. I agree with that 100%. And when it comes to the process perspective, we do embed anti-fraud by design, not only after the product has launched to the market or they reach to the customers. We have to be one step ahead of it. So before even launching, we have to do the risk assessment critically. So we have to embed this risk assessment framework in every stakeholders businesses we have on the ground to make it as a priority before even going one step ahead of launching or even proposing the product. It have to be in the brainstorming stage. And the 3rd point I should say is the awareness and keeping cautious the customers we have, the agents we have, the employees we have. That's where it comes to discovering the account takeover fraud by impersonating someone else, by just putting makeup and presenting themselves. It was identified, spotted by the agent we have, because we've been training them on the real life example scenarios. Because of that, they were able to even report it and like quote it on time and also stop it. The scenario is existing in our market, so we have to do more strong authentication and following up mechanisms so that we can distinguish them earlier. So this has been the points we've been trying to put to the front to stop the frauds or to control the frauds. Of course, we cannot stop it. If it was stopped by now, we couldn't have this in trillions words of fraud loss globally. But the effort is the point of also even gathering here is to find a way to minimize this risk we have in every environment we came from and also work together. So, and collaboration is the one I can add.
Okay, I'm still stuck on the makeup one. I think this is
These are what
incredible.
was-
Yeah, and people are so creative out there. And I'd like to come back to you. From your vantage point, managing revenue assurance and fraud management, how do these external scam campaigns, whether it's smishing, vishing, social media driven scams, translate into mobile money losses, disputes, and chargebacks? What kinds of data driven controls have you put in place across the value chain to pick up the scam related behavior? For example, unusual transaction patterns, new device plus high value activity, which I think was also touched upon by the previous presenters, and also merchant misuse and how well are they working within your organization?
Okay. I think I'll start off by saying that if you look at how the regulator has said, split your mobile money and keep your GSM business on the side, right? It is very difficult because both have to coexist. From a mobile money perspective, you'll have to feed off the KYC from the GSM, which is the main reason why somebody registered a line. Otherwise, mobile money may not exist individually. All right? So if I look at it from that perspective, then it means my fraud, most often than not, would start off from a GSM perspective. It's very rare to find that money was lost without a call, without an SMS, without any other form of GSM related type of activity. So definitely by enabling and making sure that we can curtail this from a voice and data perspective, it would help reduce my fraud. However, we have these people who then, where integrity kicks in. If you're an internal person and your integrity is very questionable, you could be monitoring Mieraf today and saying, hello, you're in Kenya, you're not in Ethiopia. I will swap your number. And because I know you have X value in your account, then I, as an insider, I can then choose to help somebody out there so that it doesn't tag back to me to do a swap by feeding them information. So there's the first bit of what security and safety measures have I put on my GSM side, making sure calls. Calls, as Ogo has mentioned, so many calls go in, so many campaign texts and messages. What are we doing to segment our campaigns? I can't be sending Mieraf today a campaign saying buy X GB of data to use for a football match. She's in Kenya. Maybe I would be selling her a roaming bundle, you know? So how well do we segment so that whatever is going out to our customers is the legit thing? Circling back, how then do I protect you from receiving calls and SMSs that then would lead to mobile money fraud? I'd have to integrate both. Someone on this podium today mentioned they've managed to integrate calls and mobile money data. So location, which is your location data, and identifying where the transaction can happen is a good check to have. Why am I in Nairobi but transacting in Mombasa? I know nowadays we share wallets, but if it's a shared wallet, it would flag for me. So there are measures and ways that we can use the data we have and analytics around it to assess where our risks. Is it geographical? Is it internal? Is it external? And how then do I map my risk and target our control?
Great. Thanks for that. Ogo, I'd like to come back to you. Just give me a second here. Yeah, so Truecaller really, I think, has a unique bird's eye view, right, of call and SMS behavior. And you've talked about the spamming is really the core scenario that you're seeing. In Nigeria, where scam activity is intense and highly adaptive, and from the data on the ground, as well as the experiences that you're seeing there, which scam types are scaling fastest in 2025? Whether it's smishing, vishing, deepfake, voice calls, business impersonation scams, something else, and how well equipped are operators and platforms, in all honesty, to detect and label these threats in near real time?
Yeah, thank you, Moses. Back to the data. Nigeria, I like to I like to reference the data, right? Nigeria has a spam intensity of 51%, right? Out of that 51%, 35% are carrier calls. About 10% is from financial institutions. 6% is actually fraud. But if you look at the size of, it's still huge. Nigeria is what? Over 185 million in terms of mobile penetration. So 6% of that is quite huge. And then again, this is what comes through our own signals. South Africa has around 30%. 10% of that comes from insurance calls. Another 10% comes from financial services and all of that. Kenya is quite mild, around 15%, you know. So, but to your question, what kind of scams are we seeing? The biggest we see is business impersonation scams, and let me tell you, most of our speakers today have mentioned social engineering, but what we see is that fraud takes a behavioral pattern, and what we see is that the scammers are getting better at credibility engineering. Being able to look and sound credible. So what you see is that they are using multiple channels. So you get an SMS first, and then you get a call, and then they're sending you an OTP. So they're not just using one channel. They're using multiple channels at the same time. So the first we see is business impersonation, where lots of businesses leave themselves unbranded. They leave themselves open. Their numbers are not properly identified. They are not properly registered. They are not properly. So you see fraud agents spoofing those numbers, impersonating those numbers. So we see them impersonating banks. We see them impersonating regulatory offices and stuff like that. The second we see is that would be investment scams. And that's not a surprise because of economic pressure, right? The scams follow, the order of the day. Whenever there's a new, the scammers try to follow that trend and all of that. So we see investment scams, click on this and get something. And then smishing is quite big. Smishing is quite big. So, in terms of detection in real time, because we sit at that intersection between the caller and the customer, we tend to see these things in real time. What we try to do is to be that first layer of